Hello and welcome to the Jan's Report. Up next is part two of my interview with Giovanni. I hope you enjoy. Where the vaccine center was.
For me, like I don't know what it was like for everybody else, but for me personally, it was okay because I live inner city. So the fact that they had like a huge sort of center for distributing the vaccines downtown was really convenient for me. And like it makes sense like geographically where you have the largest distribution center in the center of the city because it sort of funnels everyone in. Like I think maybe like in some way it might be not a good idea because of the density of people
Mhm.
all in one place. Um, but I think in like geographically it makes sense because it gives sort of relatively like equal access transit wise to
Mhm.
everybody. So I think locationally it kind of worked out for me. I don't know where did you got yours in your local pharmacy, right?
Yeah, I got mine in the local pharmacy, but it was nowhere close to me.
Yeah, you
Uh,
were saying that they was providing vaccines to actually a few different communities, right?
and well, we have a bunch of pharmacies in our community, but the Alberta Health Services vaccine center is nowhere near me.
Mhm.
So I had to literally travel because the vaccines in my own community ran out and you'd be put on a waiting list. So I had to travel to another community just to get the first dosage.
Yeah, and I was actually on a waiting list as well for my local pharmacy. And then they ended up calling me back and giving me an appointment. And then I realized that I could get one even sooner at the TELUS Convention Center. So I ended up calling the pharmacy, canceling my appointment there so that they could give that vaccine to somebody else, and then going to the TELUS Convention Center.
Yeah.
Um, but because of like the density of inner city communities, um, I think that's where a lot of the dosages were. Whereas I think maybe there weren't nearly as many dosages like closer to the fringes of the city. I would be interested to see like what that what the distribution map looks like of the vaccines. I've never seen one, so but
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see it though.
And do you have any concerns about any of the vaccines that are offered? AstraZeneca, Moderna, Pfizer?
No, not really. Like I know a lot of people have been um, not getting it because they're like, well, I want to make sure it's safe. But like there's tons of stuff you put in your body, you have no idea what's in it. So I think that's sort of like a dumb thing to say. But I personally don't have any qualms about it. I just went and took whatever they gave me. It happened to be the Pfizer one. I think the only thing that I was like kind of on the edge about was I know the AstraZeneca one because there was um, a slight risk of blood clots.
Hmm.
Um, and you know there's no need to increase the risk of anything in your life for
No.
sure, but the risk was very small, and there's a risk of tons of like there's risk involved in all medication.
Oh, of course.
So I think like in the context of it, um, even if it was the AstraZeneca, I know a few people who got it, and a few of them reacted negatively, but like they're fine. Like they got a little bit nauseous and they were a little bit sick. Um, People usually who I know who got the Pfizer one and the Moderna one, they just had arm soreness, just like myself. I had arm soreness for a couple days, but it was
Yeah.
fine. Um, but no real concerns or anything like that. I think like once you get like if you have maybe health issues or if you're older, then you have to worry more about that sort of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah. Like know what know your medical history, right? Like if you're much older and but say you're on blood thinners, like you're probably okay. You're probably going to be fine. You're not going to get blood clots, right? And if you're, regularly active and things like that, it reduces blood clots
Yeah.
like that too. Like, you know, if you're sitting for like 2 hours, or sorry, like 2 days for like 10 hours a day playing video games, if you're like a Twitch streamer, like you have a higher risk of getting blood clots because of a sedentary lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? So I think comparing those things, or just sort of considering things in context, I wasn't really worried about it.
No.
Yeah. Did you have worries about it?
I know I didn't want the AstraZeneca vaccine
Yeah.
because
Like
of
if
the
I could help it, right?
yeah
Yeah.
because of the rare blood clots, and I think someone actually died from it. Someone
Yeah, I
legitimately
did hear about
died,
that.
and the Alberta government pulled the AstraZeneca vaccine out, so now it's just Pfizer or Moderna left.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I saw a fourth one on the list too, actually, but I don't really remember what it was.
I know there's a Canadian pharmaceutical company trying to develop one.
Maybe. But like I always just think, like there are people that die of, you know, ibuprofen. Like there's people that die of like Tylenol and Advil and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's lots of like side effects for like things that you take regularly.
there are definitely, yes.
It seems worth the risk for me, just to make sure that everyone isn't just passing around COVID and things like that.
Hmm. And how would you encourage anti-vaxxers to get the vaccine?
How would I encourage them?
Yeah.
It's a difficult question. Hmm. It's a great question. Well, I would put it this way. It's difficult to use logic to persuade someone who doesn't value logic.
Okay.
Now, I know that people, like there are anti-vaxxers who have logical arguments for why they don't want to get vaccinated.
Hmm.
But I would argue that just because there is an internal logic to things does not mean that it is true,
Yeah.
right? Like you can logic things plenty, but they come with a certain level of assumption, right? And I would say, just because you've done your own research, I would say that people are so prone to confirmation bias and black and white thinking and all sorts like things that get us sort of rooted or entrenched in our own ideas, and tend to push away other ideas.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I would say yeah, you absolutely should do it, um, but it's hard to get in. I don't think I could say anything that I don't think I could say anything that hasn't already been said.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like people often choose to believe whatever they want, or a lot of the time people's beliefs serve them in a way where, they feel like they're rebelling against something, or it's just attached to something. For instance, like, flat earth stuff, I think for a lot of people is attached to, you know, a lack of integrity from the government. And I think, there's a bit of like paranoia about things.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of information out there too. So it's hard to know what is true and what is not. Um,
Yeah.
and sometimes just because everybody thinks a thing doesn't mean that it's necessarily true. But to a certain extent you have, or not to a certain extent, you have to sort of, there's no point in having experts if you're not going to listen to them.
Oh, exactly.
Right? Like you can't just say, oh, scientists don't know whatever, they don't know what they're talking about, or doctors don't know what they're talking about. Like if you can't trust in the expertise of somebody, then why have expertise in anything at all?
Yeah.
There's a
Why
reason why we have experts.
why bother having universities?
Yeah,
Have
like
experts.
yeah, at some point you have to, you know, like if even if it's just putting one person in, one person next to another person, right? It doesn't matter how logical or how emotional my argument is. Like if I'm next to a doctor, like, and it's a question of medical benefit, I don't know. I probably wouldn't listen. Like, don't, like 9 out of 10 times, don't listen to me.
Yeah.
Right? Listen to the doctor, because I might talk with conviction and I can be very persuasive, right?
Hmm.
But I don't have the expertise.
You're not an expert in the medical field.
I'm not an expert, right? You could talk with conviction and people will listen. That can be very dangerous too.
Oh yeah, of
Especially when
course.
someone doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, and but they believe that they do.
Yeah.
Then they can be very persuasive.
Huh. Example of that would be InfoWars. He's persuasive of some people.
Alex
Because he
Jones is
was talking
certainly
about.
passionate.
Yeah.
He's certainly passionate, and he can. And there's a lot of like fear mongering that can happen, and that certainly makes people feel fear. And people don't necessarily make logical decisions when they're acting out of fear,
Yeah.
right? So it's the human condition to sort of be misled one way or another by someone else or by ourselves. So it's you know we should be as logical as we can about things that we can assert,
Hmm. And,
or we can attribute causality to.
and do have more than one source, not just use one source
Yeah,
for your
exactly.
information.
Yeah, as we know, there's plenty of psychological studies that assert all sorts of things. And as a student of psychology, like I know that one um, one paper isn't enough,
No.
right? It's not enough. There needs to be, you need to duplicate studies. They need to be duplicated um, in context, and just because it's done once doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% true. If it
Yeah.
can't be replicated, right? There has to be replication studies.
Has to do it. You have to do it over and over.
Yeah, exactly. Because that way we get closer to the truth,
Of course.
right? And always coming in with a healthy level of skepticism and understanding people's agendas.
All right. Well, thank you, Giovanni, for being a guest star on the Jan's Report.
Thanks for having me. This was fun, and I really enjoyed sort of talking about this stuff, and you asked some really good questions. So
Oh, thank you. Hope to
cool.
have you again.
Yeah, you definitely will.
If you would like to be notified every time a new episode goes live on the Jan's Report, consider subscribing and hitting the like button. Also, check out the Jan's Report Facebook page for sneak peeks at our wide range of topics, from scandals to geopolitics. I will see you all on the next Jan's Report.